Welcome to the neighborhood Ford store Steelers Extra Point.
Too little, too late. That's the story for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2023 to end this season. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Extra Point. Bob Pompeani, Josh Taylor sitting in for Chris Hoke, who's out of town today. Good to have you.
It's good to be here. We've done a lot of different things, but it's good to do the next man up role, and glad to be filling in for Chris.
We have a lot to get into here, Josh, and I want to start with just this game. The Steelers did everything they could, but, you know, at the end of the day, you're going to look back and see losses to the Dolphins, who look bad even in winning today.
Absolutely.
Losses to the Jets, lost to the Patriots. Those are all beatable teams, and the Steelers were in position to do it. And that's what happens when you fall short and start 2-6. It takes a lot to get out of that hole. And even though they got 7 wins out of their last 9 games, they end up short because of it. And it also, I should point out, took a massive collapse by a lot of teams. Tennessee lost 7 in a row. They end up at one point having a 4-game lead over Jacksonville in that division, and then Tennessee loses it by losing 7 in a row. You know, the Patriots had lost some along the way. Miami had lost 5 in a row before winning, and then the Jets just fell apart. They were 7-3 at one point, and here they are out of the playoffs. But everything fell into place except for what happened today in Miami.
It's a weird set of circumstances as you lay it out, and that's the more important thing that you mentioned. You mentioned all those teams that had all those losses. The Steelers lost to each of those teams. They lose to the Jets, they lose to Miami, they lose to New England, and any one of those losses you have back puts them in the playoffs. Just one of those games goes differently, and we're singing a different tune right now.
Yeah, but as far as the Steelers, they did what they had to do. They beat the Browns today. That always sounds good to Steeler fans for sure, and they really beat up Deshaun Watson. They got after him. Cam Hayward had a monster game. I thought that entire defense really did a pretty good job, and the Steelers end up leading the NFL in interceptions this year with 20. And that's a number that I don't think many people thought, would play out this year. But 20 interceptions. Levi Wallace had kind of an unnoticed 4 picks on his career season.
Here's another thing that you look at. The 20 picks they led the league with. Also, Minka Fitzpatrick tied for the league coming into this game with 6 as well. So it does really speak to what the secondary has done, especially given, let's go back to before the bye week, all the issues this defense had is particularly stopping other teams' passing games. But now you see that second half of the season, they force a lot more turnovers. They start cashing in on them. Not only did that lead to the numbers we saw, but it also led to the outcomes we saw after the bye week with this team winning all the games they won.
And make no mistake about it, the Steelers improved in a lot of departments as this season rolled out, and they will build on that. It's a good season to look back on and see growth for the young players, and they will build that into next year. As far as today, they needed another threesome of things to happen. It happened last week. They got all 3 this week. They get 5 out of 6 at the end. 2 out of 3 today. And let's take a look at it. And you'll see the Steelers needed to win, and they did, but they also needed Buffalo to beat New England, which they did. 35-23, so the Patriots are out. But they needed Miami to lose to the Jets. And the Jets actually played them pretty tough. No touchdowns in this game, Josh. All field goals. Skylar Thompson ends up winning over Joe Flacco in a battle of number 19s. 9-6 your final score. The Ravens lose. 11-6 your final score. The Ravens lost to Cincinnati, and that leads to that predicament about coin tosses, and we saw Cincinnati have some fun with that in the end zone with Joe Mixon.
They sure did. They had a really fun touchdown celebration where they simulated the coin flip, and then when it went on the ground, they all just went and kicked the coin away because that's become the reality for Cincinnati. They beat Baltimore twice this season, and Bob, it doesn't matter because now it comes to a coin flip whether or not they will have a playoff game at home, and as the mathematics will tell you, they won the division. They beat Baltimore twice. There should be no reason why Cincinnati should host a home playoff game, but it may be the opposite, and it's not even within their control. It's simply a coin landing one way or another.
It doesn't make sense, to be honest. They had another way out of this, I thought, and they choose to go in another direction. So we'll see what happens with that, but certainly Cincinnati is motivated, and you can make a case that they're very hot, and they could use that motivation in a run-up to the AFC Championship game. Who knows? It gets underway next week. We'll take a break. We have Steeler interviews coming up. Rich Walsh is in the locker room. We're going to hear from Mike Tomlin. There was what looked like a significant injury to Pat Freiermuth at the end of this game. We'll update all of that as we continue. It is the Extra Point Show following a Steelers win 28-14 over Cleveland at Acrisure Stadium.
Welcome back to the neighborhood Ford store Steelers Extra Point.
All right, welcome back as we continue right here. Bob Pompeani, Josh Taylor with you as the Steelers win 28-14 to end their season with 7 wins in 9 games Over 500, another non-losing season for Mike Tomlin. Got to say a lot about coming back from a 2-6 deficit to go 9-8, knocking on the door. Let's take a look at the scoring summary here from today's game. And right off the bat, it was Cleveland that took the lead here on a 10-yard touchdown pass from Deshaun Watson to David Njoku. The Steelers came back, and it was George Pickett on a beautiful play. 31-yard strike from Pickett. You know, Kenny Pickett was good on third downs today, Josh. There's no question about that. 7 for 7, a couple of Boswell field goals, and then Najee Harris on the 4-yard touchdown. I thought that drive right there was the key to this one, because after Watson got the 2-yard touchdown to Nick Chubb, and there was a penalty to Cam Hayward that we all disagreed with to make a 2014 kind of a makeup call, the Steelers then came back and put together a drive that put it away. 13 plays, 73 yards, and that culminated with a Derek Watt touchdown, followed by a 2-point conversion to Deontay Johnson. That makes your final 28-14. I thought that drive, because it was still a one-possession, 6-point game, 20-14. If they had not converted some of those 3rd and 8 plays, which Pickett did, who knows where we'd be.
And we've seen a few of those drives this season. We saw it in Atlanta. We saw it in Carolina, where this team just really needed to move the chains, just get yards, keep a drive going. And we also saw in the earlier part of this season where they failed to have those kind of drives because they go 3 and out. Or maybe they only have 4 or 5 play drives. They can't convert a 3rd down and long, or maybe even a 3rd and medium. But they avoid that a lot nowadays, at least they have in the past few games, because they've run the ball so efficiently. They've avoided 3rd and long situations, and even when they've gotten to them, like you mentioned in this situation, they still converted them. That allows them to keep drives longer, gain some yardage, wear defenses down, and result in points too.
And 28 points today for a team that had struggled to score points. So again, I think all of that is moving in the right direction, something to build on for the offseason with all these young guys on offense. And principal to that is Najee Harris, who had a good day. The average not so much, but 23 carries, 84 yards, and he got another touchdown, and he's running angry. He's been running angry, and I think, Josh, looking back, we can now determine that that injury was far more significant than they allowed us to believe at the beginning of the year.
It's hard to imagine being able to do anything with a steel plate in your shoe, much less trying to run with the football against other grown men. And that's what he had to do in the early part of this season. But you saw the difference, Bob, just after the bye week alone. You saw the spring in his step. You saw the ability to hit the hole a lot more aggressively. And then you saw, as you mentioned, the angry running. I think we first saw that angry running down in Atlanta. That game he had against the Falcons, that stiff arm that was all over social media with 100,000 plus likes on just one video alone. But you saw as time went along in the second half of this season, a healthier Najee Harris was a much more efficient Najee Harris. He got some really tough yards in situations where you might have been tackled in the backfield. Plus, he made plays in the passing game. We saw that in the win in Baltimore. All of that continued to gain momentum as the second half of the season went along.
No question about it, and the offensive line got better, too. We had Max Starks on the pregame show today, and he pretty much said that, at the beginning it was a mess, and it was a mess because they had a bunch of guys. I mean, I look back now, Kendrick Green didn't even play one game. He was inactive. That's going to end up as a bust pick, apparently, and you wonder about more guys coming in. They're going to need more offensive linemen. They were lucky this year. All of them went all the way through the season. Starting 5 were together each of those games. And I thought they did get better, especially in the run game.
And you hear offensive line coaches tell you, you don't expect to have all 5 of your guys play every single day on the offensive line. It's a rare thing to happen. So at the very least, if you want to do nothing else, if you don't want to replace anybody, you at least want to add depth, because you can't expect that to happen 2 years in a row, if only for the law of averages. To have an entire offensive line playing in the whole season together is already rare in of itself. So if anything, at the very least, you add depth. If you want to replace a guy or two, that's probably a discussion that they will have internally. But yes, it is important that you move forward knowing that either you have your best 5 guys on the field or you have a couple guys behind them in case you lose one of those best 5.
We're waiting here for Mike Tomlin. It's the end of the season now. I'm sure he's addressing his team, taking a little longer than he normally would, so we'll get to him as soon as we can. But early in this game, there was an interesting development, and it led to actually Cleveland's first score. The Steelers were about to score. It was Najee Harris going in for what looked like a touchdown. He fumbled. But preceding that was what I thought was a bad call by the officials, Josh, because Harris appeared to have kept his knee off the ground. Should have been called a touchdown. You can then review it. It was called short. And so the Steelers, I was shocked that they didn't challenge that play. They decided to quick hurry up and get a quarterback sneak, which did not work. Mike Tomlin missed the boat on that one, I thought.
I think there's a couple of misses here. I think you're right with the officials because at the very least, when you look at that play, Najee Harris had the ball extended. If for nothing else, you see the fact that the ball is extended and it broke the plane of the goal line, you'd figure at the very least you call a touchdown there and then review it to make sure the knee was down before that happened. But as you also said, a missed opportunity there on the review as well. They tried to speed it up and it didn't work, and that resulted in the fumble, Bob.
Mike Tomlin is now at the podium. Let's go inside Acrisure Stadium.
We were an evolving group, and that evolution continued even into today. But I'm just appreciative of the collective. I'm appreciative of the men, not what they're capable of, but what they're willing to do. In the face of adversity, man, that football presents, in the face of adversity that life presents, we have an opportunity to kind of display some things in all of that. And hopefully we learn something. Hopefully we taught others something in the midst of our journey. So I'm just thankful for that group, appreciative of the efforts today in terms of getting the job done, divisional game. And so, aside from all the other things outside of our stadium and so forth, it was important that we displayed the ability to focus and handle in-stadium business, and they did that even in some instances a young collective. And so appreciative of that. You grow from that. We'll wrap a bow around what is 2022 tomorrow. Today I'm just focused on this game and their efforts and things of that nature. Don't have any information on Pat Freiermuth. He's being evaluated as we speak. Gunner, same thing. But hopefully those injuries aren't significant. Questions?
When did you or the players find out about what happened in the Jets game?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, it's football and it's football in 2022. I mean, we were able to follow the score in other games throughout the game, just like we are any other week.
Mike, how do you think the team responded after the penalty against Hayward on the sack of Watson?
We did what was appropriate.
Mike, winning is usually equated with experience, but by you having such a young group, doesn't give you a semblance of pride that they responded, even with their inexperience, they still responded to you?
I know what you mean by the question, but I think I've been pretty consistent all year. We lack experience in some areas, but we're good enough to win, and good enough to win while we grow, good enough to win while we gain experience. We did not grade this group on the curve. We didn't grade Kenny Pickett on the curve. We don't function like that. Football is our game. Our business is winning, and our intentions are to handle business.
Anyone else?
Tuesday, you mentioned you want to be a team on the rise going into the playoffs if you had gotten into the playoffs. Did you think that team was on that arc had you qualified today?
I think our record indicates that because that's all that matters. The style point component of play is less significant. You step into stadiums, you win games, you step out of stadiums. So to answer to your questions, yes, we were a team on the rise.
You opened by talking about the evolution you guys have been on this year. What's the next step from here in that evolution?
It comes to a screeching halt. This offseason thing, I don't know that I've pondered that. I was preparing for the potential of next week, and so I don't have the answer to that as I sit here.
Looks like you guys are going to be facing Watson for a long time. How did you feel like you dealt with the challenges that he brought to the table?
We did what we had to do today, but obviously, man, he is a problem, particularly as he runs around and extends plays and things of that nature, but that's why they went and got him. And so that problem's probably not going to go anywhere.
And your thoughts on how your defense handled Nick Chubb?
Late in the season football, man, your featured runner has got to be the best featured runner in the stadium. And it was not only about challenging our defensive front, but it was about challenging our offensive front to make sure that Naj had a good day. And so I think we checked both of those boxes.
Mike, you said you didn't grade Pickett on a curve. Now that you've seen him for a year, his development, I assume you're pleased with where this offense could be headed?
Man, I don't know that I use please very often. I'll take it. We'll keep working.
And you said you don't grade any of these young guys on a curve, but what is the value of them playing the game like today, which at the start of the day looked like it was, for your playoff lives?
I think there's growth in big game opportunities. We've been in some big games, but we're doing business with these guys because of their ability to rise up in those moments. I just think that's part of the things that attracted us to them individually. When you look at each guy and you put a collection of those kind of guys together and you work them and you prepare them, you generally have an opportunity to grow in that way.
One more.
have you seen Connor Hayward kind of progress and obviously gets an opportunity with Pat down there?
I think it's about opportunities for young guys. You know, due to a variety of circumstances, he got increased opportunities as the season wore on, and he proved that he belonged, and I'm sure that's going to be a nice springboard for him in terms of transitioning from year one to year two. And you guys know the standard of expectation that we have for those guys. Man, it's reasonable to expect rookies who are transitioning into year two to be significantly better, and so we're going to start with that agenda with guys like him and others.
All right,
thanks guys.
All right, Mike Tomlin, final presser of the year, not counting the one that they'll have later for a season ender, but seemed to be, even though he doesn't want to use the word pleased, he seemed encouraged anyway with what he's seen, and why not? I mean, there are a lot of guys here who are going to be part of this in the future on offense, especially, who are young. Rookie quarterback, rookie wide receiver who could end up being the number one guy. You got a second-year tight end. You got another rookie tight end in Connor Hayward. He was really good today with some of those catches.
And your number two backup running back is a rookie as well, undrafted. Right. So you have a lot of young talent between Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, Kenny Pickett, Pat Freiermuth, George Pickens, Connor Hayward. And you have a lot of guys that you can use and interchange with this offense. And I know this is a point of contention and criticism for some people. But Matt Canada's offense is really designed to use a bunch of different people in different areas and in different kind of Swiss Army knife scenarios. Connor Hayward fits that role really, really well. And think of other guys around the league, the Kyle Juszczyks, the Patrick Ricards that other teams use, fullback, H-back kind of situations. Now you have a guy in Connor Hayward who's starting to really grow into that role. You saw the touchdown catch in Atlanta. You saw the play that sealed the game against the Raiders. And you see him make a big play in the run game today, and he makes some catches in the passing game too when Pat Freiermuth goes down. This is a guy who's growing into that role and showing his versatility game by game.
And Derek Watt, Mr. 3rd and 1.
Derek Watt does it again.
Got a touchdown today, being used a lot more, and we'll see if that continues. But I think one of the biggest things in the next week or two will be to talk about what they do, if anything, with Matt Canada. He has 1 year left on a contract. I'm sure a lot of people have speculation about it, although certainly what looked like an inevitability at the bye week has turned into much more like a 50-50 proposition at this point.
I think it's one of those things, Bob, when you look at what this offense did before the bye week, it's easy to have one conclusion, but you look at what they did after the bye week, and this is something I've talked about quite a bit throughout the course of the season. I'm sure you and I both discussed this on the Nightly Sports Call. You see the way this run game has evolved and how it's developed. And honestly, if you want to see the essence of what Matt Canada's offense looks like, it usually works its best when the run game is effective, because that opens up the play action game. That opens up the deep passing game. And we saw the Steelers take a lot of opportunities down the field with George Pickens this time around. Looks like they picked up on that memo too. But the thing that has to really work for it to be, in order for everything else to happen, is running the football to work. Najee Harris is doing that. Jalen Warren is doing it. And now you're seeing everybody else in the offense benefit because of it.
And they're also going to get another guy back we haven't talked about, Calvin Oster, who missed the entire season.
Whole nother chapter.
Whole nother young guy coming in. So they're built for this, and they're going to add to it, and we'll see what it leads to. But certainly a much more positive vibe the last 9 games. We will continue with player interviews in the locker room. We also have calls that you'll give us coming up at around the 5 o'clock hour, 5 to 6, on a special edition of the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. We'll come back with more of our post-game coverage of a Steelers 28-14 win. They fall just short on a 50-yard field goal by Miami, and that is enough to get them into the playoffs.
Welcome back to the Neighborhood Ford Store Steelers Extra Point.
All right, welcome back here in the KDKA studios as we take a look at the AFC North final standings. The Bengals win the division. They beat Baltimore again today. Ravens are just reeling with no Lamar Jackson, and you'd think he'd be available in the postseason. Did not play again today. Then the Steelers in third at 9-8, followed by the Browns, who are in a traditional last-place finish, it seems, outside of that one season when they got into the playoffs with Baker Mayfield and did some damage. But, you know, you talk a lot about the young guys. George Pickens obviously is someone they want to target more. Today, just 3 targets or 3 catches. I don't know how many times he was targeted, but that's a guy who should really emerge as a 10-target kind of guy.
The thing I liked about what they did with George Pickens, not only actually with the catches he made down the field, they actually used him and tried to get him open. He drew a couple penalties too, Bob. I think that's something else that's important. If you got a guy who's a legit downfield threat, or if he's a red zone threat, his job might not be just catching the ball, making plays. It might be giving you opportunities to draw some penalties too. And he's starting to do that a little bit more. But I love the fact that they are trusting him more going down the field. And you and I have had this discussion before. You get him one-on-one on the outside, you got to put the ball up. And you see him look at the camera sometimes, and he'll tell you, put it in the sky. They did that quite a bit today with trying to find him down the field. Actually, they did it on back-to-back plays, which I thought was impressive. And the second one came really close to being the catch. He got 1 foot down, but couldn't get the other one. They actually looked at it for a couple moments there to make sure that that call was correct. But I do like the fact that they are trusting him more, not only down the field, but we saw in the previous couple games, they're kind of expanding his route tree to make some plays in the shorter intermediate game too. So all of this stuff is coming together, and it's becoming the maturation of a really talented receiver.
There's no question about that. And they were trying to take advantage of Emerson, a rookie. Denzel Ward left the game, did not return. So that was an invitation to go down the field and do it. And they did it on those back-to-back plays. Alex Highsmith had a really good season. He is in the locker room. Rich Walsh was there.
Yeah, it sucks, because we know we have a playoff team. We just didn't start fast enough. And but I'm just, like I said, I'm proud. I love this team. I'm proud of the way we finished. We finished so strong. And, it hurts not getting to the playoffs, but, we got something to build on, for next season.
Alex, did you think you guys found something here the second half of the season?
Yeah.
Was this a different team?
Yeah, I think it definitely was. The second half, and guys were really bought in. No one panicked. We were 2-6. Guys just kept fighting. And so, that's, like I said, I'm just proud of the way we all kept fighting. To just even put ourselves in a position to be in the playoff hunt. And so, like I said, we just build off this going into next season.
I know it's a long off season, but can you use this as maybe momentum or confidence for that next season?
For sure. And it's just, like I said, we know the type of team that we are, know the type of team that we could be. We know we're a playoff team, and unfortunately we're not there. But, we just got to build on it because this is momentum, and so we just got to build on it for next season.
Did you guys find out when you got in here? Did you know?
I looked up at the scoreboard after the game, and it sucks, because like I said, we know we got the team. We fought our butts off, and that's all we could do.
They kept a 50-yard field goal with like 18 seconds.
Who?
Miami.
It's crazy. But like I said, we finished strong, and just proud of this team the way we fought.
Alex, this is obviously a disappointing time of the year, right? I mean, the faces are going to change in here. Your season is over.
Yeah, I'm just it's cool being in the locker room with all these guys, and so like I said, I love to be a part of this team, and it just shows how resilient we were, being able to fight back, and in the season the way we did.
Alex Highsmith had a good season. A lot of those guys on defense did today. Leading tacklers, Minkah Fitzpatrick had 10 of them. Highsmith right there. Spillane, Cam Hayward, 8, 3 solo. He had 3 quarterback hits, a couple of sacks. Man, that guy gets better and better and better. We're going to hear from number 97 a little later in the season. Terrell Edmonds, who they had at linebacker here and there, dabbling in that, and Miles Jack. That's going to be an interesting position, Josh, looking in this offseason. Devin Bush, obviously, did not play a lot, and it clearly indicates that they have lost whatever faith they had in him is gone. So therefore, you would think they're going to part ways with him, and they're going to need another guy. They're still chasing that position ever since the injury to Ryan Shazier.
And it sounds like a guy they're starting to trust a little bit more frequently is Mark Robinson, the rookie out of Ole Miss. And we saw, especially against Baltimore, he was a guy who was getting in there, putting his face in the fan and making some plays in the run game and making some hits and clogging up some holes against the Ravens. So you see that kind of development. And a guy like Robert Spillane, whom they've given more and more responsibility to, whether him earning it or Devin Bush maybe losing it, you can make that debate. But Robert Spillane's a guy they've trusted a lot more too. And it does create some questions here as far as what they do with that inside linebacker position moving forward. I know a lot of people have had their opinions about Devin Bush one way or another, but that inside linebacker room, and you mentioned it, since the loss of Ryan Shazier, there has been some circling there, trying to find a solution, and I don't think they found maybe a concrete one yet, but they're going to try to find the best combination of guys that fit that description.
Yeah, I think Mike Tomlin likes Miles Jack. Still has another year. I expect him to be back.
1 year remaining on the contract.
Yeah, so, but they're going to need somebody else. You definitely need depth there at all these kind of positions, so you can earmark that position as one of their positions of need heading into this draft. And by the way, Chicago lost again. So that trade has just been pure gold for the Steelers. Chicago will have the #1 pick in the draft, which means the Steelers are going to have the first pick of the second round, which means they're going to get 3 very good picks right off the bat in this draft.
It's also worth pointing out, not only Chicago clinching that #1 pick, remember, Miami forfeits their first-round pick. So instead of having the number 33 pick in the draft, they now have number 32 because the Dolphins don't have a first-round pick because of that penalty as well. So this looks better and better by the moment as far as the opportunity to have 3 picks really high in the upcoming draft.
All right, George Pickens, we've been talking a lot about him. He's gotten better with each and every game, and he is a tough cover for any defensive back. He spoke in the locker room just moments ago.
I'll probably say, yeah. I'll probably say hard work kind of played in the big thing second half of the season, knowing that, we got a few young guys, and we ain't never played a 17, 18-game schedule. So, yeah, I'll probably say endurance and resiliency.
I know you probably obviously disappointed the season is over, but is it even more disappointing the way this team is trending down the stretch that you don't get a chance to get into the postseason?
Yeah, it's more like it kind of hurt more like when you get close and you still, you know what I mean? And it's my first year, so that's kind of new to me. But then again, there's nothing, you kind of only control what you can control.
I know it's a long off season, but can this carry over? I mean, can you carry that confidence or momentum into the next year?
Me personally, I'll probably say yeah, just typically because that's always been my personality before I even started playing this game. So, next year I'll probably be looking at the same thing.
Yeah, they can expect that second year to be a big year, but I'll caution you because I thought Chase Claypool would go in that direction as well, especially 2 to 3.
That's fair.
And he had everything to play for. He was dealing with a contract season. He had brought in Brandon Marshall to help him. You thought he recommitted to it after a bad second season. Man, it didn't work out at all. And he's a non-factor for the Bears right now. You wonder about his future.
And that's something that doesn't happen often as far as this team, as far as drafting receivers. They've hit pretty well, especially in the later rounds over the past decade or so. They've done a pretty good job of bringing in guys that can fit into this offense that aren't maybe top first-round pick guys, but they've done it in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th rounds, if you want to count Antonio Brown. We thought we had found one, or we thought the Steelers had found one with Chase Claypool in the 2nd round. Then you see that trade being made, and it's kind of confirmed that maybe they knew that this wouldn't work as far as their future plans because he hasn't done much more in Chicago, Bob, than he did here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. And speaking of the defense, we talked to some of those guys earlier. Cam Hayward, who just had a monster game today, was denied a 3rd sack. He had 2 of them, went to double digits, but at the same time, he was denied one because of a roughing call, which we'll debate here in a little bit because the officials did not have a good day in my estimations. TJ Watt right now is live at the podium. Let's go there and hear from him.
TJ, these last several games here, was this the kind of defense you thought you guys would play collectively all along, and what was kind of the coalescing factor here?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were starting to play some really good football in all phases, and I think on defense we were starting to really get that splash, and we were able to stop the run and make teams one-dimensional, and able to get after the quarterback. But it was too little, too late this year, but a lot to build on. Very proud of the guys in that locker room. Like I said on the field, would have been very easy to fold it in and start to wonder why this is happening to us and pointing fingers and assigning blame, but none of the guys did that, and that's a credit to Coach T, the leadership in the locker room, the guys that we have to be able to, when our backs are against the wall, in the record and throughout games this year, to be able to fight back and play for each other.
For you to be injured and seeing your teammates kind of playing less than they could, how did you take that? Were you reevaluating your play when you were out as well in terms of what you would do when you came back?
I mean, all I can speak to is when I was out, I wanted to be back.
TJ, what was the feeling in the locker room? Satisfaction, disappointment?
Disappointment. It all happens very fast. I mean, it's hard to fully understand that we don't have a game this week, and I think it'll take a little bit of time to kind of understand and come to terms with it, because I feel like we were just starting to play some really damn good football. But that's the business. We didn't get it done this year. There's a lot of stuff to build on, and we move on.
Some of the gains that were made, looking ahead to next year, does it underscore all the more the importance of doing some of the things that you did well at the end of this season, carrying it over to the start of next year without having to scramble back like you guys have done so many times in recent years, being better in September and October so you don't put yourself in a corner late?
Yeah, I mean, no one wants to start slow. I mean, we always want to start fast. We were a young team this year. It'll be nice to be able to keep a good core group of guys here. Never know who's going to be back, who's not, but very confident with the guys in this locker room. And like I said, just because we've been through so many ups and downs throughout the season, and nobody gave up.
What's the emotion like for your family? You got to see your brother score, see your other brother play his final game. What's that kind of emotion of today like?
I mean, it's just my life. I mean, it's just something that I've grown accustomed to. I mean, to see Derek, I've seen him put in the work, and to be able to see him score a touchdown is pretty damn cool. Something that I'll have that memory for the rest of my life. And to be able to see JJ today play his last game is very special. And I did not want to be hanging out with him next weekend, but we'll be able to celebrate together, which will be pretty cool.
You mentioned all the unknowns in any offseason. Did you and Derek talk at all about whether this could be your last game together, just with him hitting free agency?
Not yet. I mean, like I said, this is all so fresh. I think it's just, after this, just need to sit down and kind of understand that we don't have a game next week.
You mentioned the youth that you guys have on this roster. What did you see from some of those younger guys this year that gives you confidence that the future is bright?
Yeah, we have a good mix of young guys who want to work and old guys who want to show the way, and I think that's very key to what we want to build here as Pittsburgh Steelers. I think it's been important all season long. Coach T's brought back alumni, and just to show what it means to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. And like I said, like I'll keep saying on repeat, I feel very confident, young, old, whoever's in that locker room, players and coaches.
TJ, you mentioned a minute ago you played some really damn good football. How good was it? Do you think it was playoff caliber?
I mean, we'll never know. I mean, I felt like if we got in, we had a good chance to make some headlines, but we'll never know.
Anything else? TJ, looks like you guys are going to be battling Watson for a long time. What did you make of the first one there with him at the Browns?
Talented quarterback. Obviously, you guys saw he's very tough to get down. We knew the extended plays were going to be a problem, and they were today. But it's all good film to learn from. Thanks, guys.
All right, there goes T.J. Watt, last year's NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Now we take a look at the JP Roofing final stats of this game. And, you know, the Steelers pretty much had it their way. Once they built a lead, they did a lot of good things defensively. Now we have Kenny Pickett heading to the podium. We're going to get to him and hear from number 8 on his rookie season, which is now concluded.
Yeah, a little bit of both, right? You know, got the win, but obviously not the result we wanted. You know, at the end of the day here, wanted a shot at the playoffs, but didn't work out that way. So, you know, a little bit of mixed feelings.
Kenny, how would you characterize the offense over the last couple of weeks and maybe the progress or development that you guys and the young core made together?
Yeah, you know, we saw a lot of improvement. You know, really liked the way that, you know, we were improving and getting things off tape and, you know, moving the ball really well. Finished a lot better today than in previous weeks. So there's positives, there's negatives, like there are every game. But you know, wish we had another week to keep improving. But you know, it is what it is.
How much value would you have been able to extract from a playoff berth? I mean, how much do you think that could have expedited your learning curve for next year?
I don't even think it's just about my learning curve. I think it's about playing for a championship. That's what it's all about. So we would have had an opportunity if we had that, you know, chance. You know, when you don't take care of your own business, you don't control your own destiny. So that's just, you know, what happened.
How close are you offensively to functioning the way the group aspires to function these last couple of games?
Yeah, I mean, we were close today. I feel like we just couldn't, you know, get out of our own way there in the first half, and then we started finishing a lot better in the second half. So I think it was a little bit of a tale of two halves there, but you know, we were definitely trending in the right direction.
Kenny, TJ was saying there's a lot to build on. How do you try to build on this and keep that going through the offseason and into next year?
Just continue to stay together, work together in the offseason. You know, we're all, you know, at least offensively with the skill guys, you know, we're definitely going to get together and continue to make progress. You know, guys need to get away a little bit and kind of, you know, de-stress, I guess, and you know, we'll reconvene and get back to work. And you know, I'm excited for what the future holds. I think we have a lot of great players. You know, so I'm really excited for that.
After you lost the first game in Baltimore, you knew you had to win out. What do you feel like you guys learned about yourselves as a team, just, you know, sort of backs against the wall, that you were able to do what you needed to do on the field from there on out?
Just, we always knew what we were capable of, but it was good to see it kind of come true in front of our eyes, and just finding ways to win week in, week out. No one really caring how it gets done. Just find a way to get it done. That's what it's all about, is getting wins. So it was really good to see.
What do you think you showed your teammates this year?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure. I think you have to ask them, but I just want to be consistent. I want to be a consistent guy, consistent leader. I want to continue to improve. I don't think I'm anywhere close to what I can be and what I'm going to be. So I'm excited to attack the offseason and take that leap into year 2.
Your touchdown toss to George Pickett seemed a lot like your Raiders touchdown toss, hitting the seam, going up the middle. How have you guys come together and found more ways to connect as the season has come along?
Yeah, I think we do a good job of moving them around a little bit more, not keeping them in the same spot. The more we can move 18 and 14 around, and obviously with Pat in there as well, it just creates some problems. So it was something that we saw throughout the week. Watching tape, the Saints ran it, and I kind of was just like, hey, I think this has a shot. So we liked George inside, had Tay on the outside there, put Pat at number 3, so that backside safety, he did exactly what we saw on tape. So it's pretty cool when you put something in like that, you get a call perfectly in the right situation for a touchdown. It's awesome.
How do you feel about the improvements you've made in just preparing for games and things that you can see like that going into a matchup?
It's big. I felt like the offense started to become my own the more I was playing in it. Taking real ownership of it instead of just kind of playing catch up. When I got thrown in there a little bit earlier, and I was just worried about executing the plays. And now I felt like I had everything at my disposal when I was coming to the line of scrimmage. So, I think I made a good jump there in a learning curve, and I want to make that leap into year 2 now.
You say it made it my own. Is it more of your input or more of the playbook available to you?
Both. Just knowing, instead of running out there and just executing plays, knowing where alerts are and certain different things where I can do so many different things and see different things, and everyone's running to win. Everyone thinks that they can get the football because it can go anywhere at any given time. Just taking real ownership of the offense.
Is that how you end up hitting Connor Hayward on a couple of
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett right there, and that last thing he said, talking about just the experience and what it means to him. And that's what I've been looking at. The stats may not jump out, the charts to you, but bottom line is he's making good reads when he has to, especially in some of those clutch down situations. Mike Tomlin talks about the weighty downs. And on the weighty downs today, in that last touchdown drive, there was a 3rd and 10. He went to Pickens. There was a 3rd and 8. Twice he went to Connor Hayward, another good rookie emerging here because of an injury to Pat Freiermuth. So, Josh, that's what he's talking about. And that now is in his experience bank. So next year when he comes back, he doesn't have to go through that. He can take it to another level, and I think you can see statistical improvement in this game for sure.
You mentioned it. The numbers don't always reflect it, but this is something that you see with quarterbacks, especially when they start to develop. The things that coaches look at as far as quarterback efficiency, completion percentage is great, QB rating is great, yardage numbers are something that is always going to jump off the page. But how good are you on 3rd down? How good are you in the red zone? How good are you in the 2-minute drill? Can you be efficient in those things? And we saw him progressively get better and better, especially on 3rd down. Kenny Pickett just got very, very quickly evolved in that one. Then we saw him start to get better as far as the 2-minute drill. He got better with that. When you look at the Miami game and the Jets game, and how he managed to do the opposite of those things in opportunities later on. The way they closed out the Falcons, all those things started to add up. The comeback against Indianapolis. Then you see the comeback against the Raiders. He got more efficient there. Then you're starting to see a little bit more of this offense in the red zone. Still a little bit more meat on that bone, so to speak. But you're starting to see him be a little bit more efficient in the situations, Bob, where a quarterback needs to be efficient to help his team win games.
And it will lead to an interesting offseason when it comes to who's the backup. Mitch Trubisky has another year left on a contract. Mason Rudolph, however, does not. We'll talk a little bit about that when we come back. We also have interviews with both Haywards. So, Charlotte, the mother Hayward, watch. Your sons are both going to be on, as well as Minka Fitzpatrick. We have it all coming up right here as we continue our post-game show brought to you by your neighborhood Ford store. 28-14 Steelers end with 7 wins of their last 9 games, but fall just short of Miami. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the neighborhood Ford store Steelers Extra Point.
All right, we continue right here. Bob Pompeani, Josh Taylor in the studio. Rich Walsh is over at Acrisure Stadium. Here's our #1 Cochrane player of the game. Yes, Mr. Cam Hayward. like a fine wine, every year gets better, especially toward the end of the year. 8 tackles, 3 solos, 2 sacks, could have been 3, 4 quarterback hits. I'm going to get more on that sack thing in a minute because I thought he got robbed of one with a roughing the passer call about Cam Hayward in the locker room after the game.
I always try to think like there's more for me to accomplish, more for me to do, and that's my mentality. That's how I lead. No one's above getting better, and I think this group has to keep finding that. You can't be thinking, oh, I'm the nicest thing since sliced bread. You just got to keep trying to find little ways to get better because exponentially it will mean so much more.
So what was your reaction to that penalty on the sack?
Took away my 10th sack just right then and there. I understand we're trying to protect quarterbacks, but at the same time, the dude's been running through tackles. What am I supposed to do? It's not like they blew it dead early, and I don't know how to change up my game accordingly. If you're going to do that, blow the flag way earlier. I'll let up. I would have been pretty ticked if I didn't get another sack in that game, and I'm left at 9 or 9.5, and I don't get the sack at the end.
That got taken away from you.
Yeah. That's very important to me. There's little goals I set every year, but that's the game right now. We have these mobile quarterbacks. What am I supposed to do if they're trying to rip off and shrug off tackles?
He shows a makeup call.
Yeah, if you don't put your full body weight or try to wrap up and take him to the ground, he's running through tackles.
And that's exactly what he did, and that's what Mike Tomlin alluded to. He is a mobile quarterback. He made some yards after contact as a quarterback, so if you're going to do that. And the other thing is, I thought clearly there was a missed call by Larry Ogunjobi. It was a face mask that I don't know how these officials didn't see this stuff, because it was as blatant a face mask as you're going to see on a tackle, dragged down by his face. They should have called it. They didn't. That, to me, looked like a makeup call, Josh. And it was a terrible call because he has nowhere to go. What's he supposed to do? Just let up and let him go, and then what happens?
That's the same case I made during the game. I think I tweeted it out. I don't know what Cam Hayward is supposed to do when you're tackling Deshaun Watson in order to bring him to the ground and not be penalized, especially given the fact, and Cam pointed it out, he had gotten out of guys' arms and arm tackles earlier in the game. He had avoided being sacked quite a few times. He even escaped T.J. Watt at one point. So when you have a quarterback like that can either use his own strength to get out of arm tackles or elude people, you got to find the best way to bring it to the ground. Cam Hayward thought he did that. The officials felt otherwise. And to your point about Larry Ogunjobi, Bob, I think that was one of those things where you saw it immediately. The first contact he made with Deshaun Watson was with his face mask, and we were kind of joking about it in the sports department. Okay, when's the makeup call coming? Sure enough, it came. It was Cam Hayward, and he talked about getting that 10th sack taken away. But at least he got that 10th sack later on. Poetic justice for Cam Hayward. Congratulations.
Double digits again at his age. You don't see that with defensive linemen, and just a complete year for him. It's a shame that he doesn't get a chance in the playoffs this year, and they'll try to do that next year. We'll see what happens. In the meantime, the leading tackler today for the Steelers was Minkah Fitzpatrick. That's a perch he normally sits on. 10 tackles today, and he spoke after the game as well.
Did you ever have a victory be kind of so deflating position?
Be
able to do what you did and still
I'm not deflated at all. You know what I'm saying? We like we were saying earlier, we started 2-6, and to finish 9-8 is impressive. Obviously the goal is to go into the playoffs and make a run in the playoffs, but the only thing that we could control today was playing against the Browns and dominating the game, and I think we did a pretty good job of doing that. So I'm not deflated. Obviously, we didn't make the goal of making the playoffs, but deflated is not where I'm at right now.
Is it disappointing that you guys were trending in the right direction and the season is kind of over, especially the way you guys were playing headed in?
Nah, like I said, I'm not. I think just trending in the right direction is always positive. You don't want to say we're trending in the right direction, but you know what I'm saying, we're trending in the right direction. We made the plays we had to make. The only thing that I'm disappointed in is the slow start to the season. That's the only thing I'm disappointed in. That's in the past. We can't control it. We learned from it, and then now we finished the season the way we did. So, not disappointed at all.
Mickey, the way you guys were playing on defense the last X number of games, offense has been much better. How close does it look now to what you thought it would look like, or you thought it could look like? You guys pretty close to hitting it here at the end.
I think we play one game at a time. Whether we're 0-6 or 6-0, was one game at a time for me personally. So what we think we could look like, or what we think we could look like, that's not really a thought in my mind. It's just how can we get better week to week.
I know it'll be a different team next year, but can any of this carry over in the next season, the way you guys are playing here towards the end?
I think so. I think we realized what playing fundamental, sound, disciplined football looked like. I think we weren't doing that early on in the season. Even if you watch the first Cleveland game to this game, we look like a totally different defense. I can only speak for the defense, but we look like a totally different defense. I think today we played a very disciplined game. We played a very sound game, played fast, played physical. But the first game of the season was not that. You know what I'm saying? So I think we could definitely carry it over into next year.
There's your Steeler team MVP, voted on by players. I thought Cam Hayward was also right up there in that voting. Could have been him the season
Absolutely.
he had. One of those two guys you knew was going to happen. But Minka had a very complete season. It started with that week 1 when he had a pick 6 of Joe Burrow, and then the block at the end, which gave them an opportunity to win a game that not many people thought they would. He's a difference maker, and he's a big part of this moving forward as well. When we come back, we'll talk about some offensive players. You're going to hear from some of those guys, including Najee Harris, as the Steelers end up winning today, 28-14 over the Browns, so they end up in third, Cleveland in last, but they both missed the playoffs. We'll continue right here on Pittsburgh CW.
Welcome back to the neighborhood Ford store Steelers Extra Point.
Coming up shortly, we'll be taking your phone calls, but right now, this is the final AFC playoff wildcard weekend. Kansas City gets the bye because of circumstances, so it's a typical position for them. They're the only team that gets a week off. Miami will play Buffalo. Miami looks awful, and you wonder if Tua will play, and if not, that spread may be up into double digits for sure. Baltimore struggling. You wonder if Lamar Jackson's going to play against Cincinnati, a team that's motivated. And then the Chargers and Jags, two very good young quarterbacks, both at the age of 24. Herbert versus Trevor Lawrence, who really turned his season around, Josh. I mean, that guy, I would think, is the best quarterback over the last 7 games in the NFL.
You make a case for him, definitely. Yeah. As far as young quarterbacks go, I think you're right. Herbert and Lawrence, you want to talk about the changing of the guard at quarterbacks because it's happened over the past couple seasons. Right now, if you look at the top tier guys, it's Josh Allen, it's Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, those are guys you're looking at. But Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert could be guys that are at the top of the league at that position for a long time. And some people would put Justin Herbert in the top 5 right now as far as quarterbacks, and I would do the same thing. But I'd say within a year or two, you're probably going to be talking about Trevor Lawrence in the discussion with those guys. And the way he played the second half of the season, as you talked about, as you saw Tennessee starting to slide and their quarterback position falling apart, Trevor Lawrence is asserting himself. Jacksonville's winning games. They battled their way into the playoffs, and they win the division with that win against Tennessee. So now you're seeing that trajectory for Trevor Lawrence start to move in the upper position.
By the way, if you joined us late, Mike Tomlin in his press conference did not have an update on injuries, specifically Pat Freiermuth, who went down, had to be helped off. Hopefully that's not a serious one. But Connor Hayward had an opportunity to get in the game, made 2 very clutch third down conversions, 3rd and 8 in the same drive. And he spoke after the game, Rich Walsh in the locker room.
Well, it didn't give up after 2 and 6.
Just our mindset, I think. We all came in with the right mindset of getting better and knowing that we control our record, and we didn't want to, go out there and, lay an egg or not do what we were supposed to do. This is our job, and we're judged on how we win games, and obviously we want to win all the games, but we had to dig ourselves out of the hole for a little bit, and I'm glad we did, and, not being Coach T's first under 500 group, and, I think that was a lot of motivation behind it, and obviously we just wanted to get to the playoffs, and obviously that didn't happen, but I think everybody feels how it feels right now, and just how we were in the locker room, it just was kind of dead. I think it'll help us and have some fuel to the fire for next year.
That's one thing I want to ask you. How much did it mean to you not to carry on that streak of Tomlin's non-losing season?
It meant a lot to me, even though myself and the rookies have only been here for a year, but we didn't want to be that rookie class, and we just didn't want to be that team in general. We see the time him and all the coaches put in, and we put in a lot of time into this. So we want to get every win, and I'm glad that we got that today. And it's just unfortunate that we're not moving on, and we're done.
Obviously, you're disappointed the season's over, but is it maybe even more disappointing the way you guys are trending, the way you were playing the second half of the season?
Yeah, because we all feel like we could have done this from the jump, but I mean, who to blame besides us? It starts with us, and I think it's just going to help us for next year. Like I said, we won't start out slow, and if we lose a game, we're going to have to turn around fast and not let those losing games add up, I think that will help us. Being able to dig ourselves out the hole faster, if necessary.
Did the offense make strides here?
That's Connor Hayward after the game, and he had an impact on this game for sure. And it's interesting, Josh, you look at their rookie draft class. It was a pretty good one when you look back now with Kenny Pickett being number 1, followed by George Pickens. I think DeMarvin Leal is going to be a good player. We haven't seen Calvin Austin, but then you have other guys in there like him as a late-round pick, Mark Robinson, who is a young linebacker, although I didn't think he had a very good game today, but he's learning and pushing a little bit. And then you even had an undrafted running back in Jalen Warren. So I think Kevin Colbert's final draft and what he did afterwards, pretty significant.
Yeah, I think that rookie class definitely paid dividends, especially when you see what those guys are doing in positions to succeed in the game. Usually you see rookies, you don't see an entire class of guys or the majority of a class of guys playing meaningful snaps in games late in the season. You're probably seeing them mostly in the preseason and maybe if somebody gets hurt. These were guys that stepped into roles. They were stepping into rotations and making things happen pretty quickly. Kenny Pickett got the opportunity 4 weeks in. George Pickens was a guy who was pretty much in the mix from the very beginning. But then you see guys like DeMarvin Leal, like you mentioned, getting the opportunity. I thought him getting hurt really delayed him. We might have seen more out of him. And then we didn't see Calvin Austin at all because those issues stretched all the way back to training camp. But Connor Hayward's a guy who got opportunities as the season went along, and he didn't drop the ball in any of them. You think of the touchdown catch in Atlanta. You think of the jet sweep play that sealed the game against the Raiders. He just made plays more and more. Then he gets opportunities today after Pat Freiermuth gets hurt. Couple big third down catches that Bob mentioned. He's becoming a guy that's becoming, more reliable in this offense. They're trusting him with opportunities to make plays in big moments. We can keep talking about how he's Cam's little brother, but he's now a guy who has a lot of versatility and can do more than one thing in this offense and make plays in a variety of ways.
And on the other side, too, when we talk about running backs, you're talking about Jalen Warren, who had, talk about overcoming adversity. He's undrafted, which means his odds to make the roster are difficult to begin with. But he had a leap over Anthony McFarland, who was a 4th-round pick. Benny Snell already on the roster. You knew Najee Harris was going to be the bell cow, but this guy jumped over both, and he was impressive. I think the knock on him in college, he fumbled the ball a little bit too much. He did put it on the ground once prior to today, and they recovered. So that problem did not exist, but boy, his running style is to be applauded. He created an opportunity for himself as Najee's backup.
And if you listen to what people said during training camp, especially with what he did in practice, you heard Mike Tomlin's voice a lot when Jalen Warren was on the field. He called him 3-0 in practice. Jalen Warren caught Mike Tomlin's attention early, and that was rewarded in the way they gave him the opportunity coming out of training camp. Then they gave him the opportunity in games, and as the season wore on and he got more touches, he became more reliable to the point where you start looking at a 1-2 combination with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. And we see teams across the league doing this now, Bob, where they're trusting more than one guy to tote the football. And when he gets opportunities, he's not missing them much.
Not at all. Another guy who took advantage of opportunities finally in the offensive game was Derek Watt. He'd been mostly a special teams guy. This year, not so much. On 3rd and short, he was the guy to call. 4th and short, if it's not a Kenny Pickett sneak, it's Derek Watt. He scored a touchdown today, and he spoke after the game.
The play was called. It's been working for us all year in short yardage situations. O-line did their thing and got it. O-line did their thing like they always do and got in there and made my job easy. And, obviously it was exciting.
How do you approach a season where you're ranked 79, but you don't make the playoffs? What's the feelings like?
Yeah, obviously we didn't start the year the way we wanted to, but there's a lot of tremendous things that we all pulled together and never gave up and put ourselves in a situation to make the playoffs. But obviously we fell short and. Just a few things earlier in the season, obviously we needed to iron out, but we all pulled together and stuck with it and finished the year strong.
Even maybe a little more disappointing the way you guys finished, that there is no postseason.
We did what we handled what we could control, and ended on a good note, positive note, like you said. We felt good about how we were playing at the end of the year. Just the beginning of the year, kind of what didn't go how we had hoped.
I know it's a long off season and this locker room's going to change, obviously, but is this something that can be carried over? Is there a little confidence heading into next year?
For sure, no question about that. It's just you always got to be able to build on that kind of stuff, and finish the year strong, and got to carry that into the off season, and see what happens next year.
Well, next year you can be sure that Najee Harris is still going to be the guy in his third year, another 1,000-yard season. It started slowly, and as Josh and I kind of talked about earlier in this broadcast, that injury was significant. They didn't say it, but it was, and it certainly affected his play. He ends up strong today, 23 for 84, 1 touchdown. He spoke also after the game.
To see how those games went. But, I think us as a team, I think the way that we finished the season, the way we came out of the bye week, I think that we should be really proud of ourselves. We can just see how our future is. We're young, but we're also really talented. And, I think that for us to come together through all that adversity that we had earlier on in the year, for us to finish out the season the way we did, man, it should be motivation for us. And we should be hungry for next year. That's what I was telling a lot of guys on the sideline when I saw the Dolphins won. I just, shook Kenny's hand and told him he had a great year, man. It's just, we got to do a lot as a team if we want to be where we're at next year, not waiting for other teams to lose to get in. So we got a lot to build on, but, man, obviously to make the playoffs, but, we accomplished not having a losing season for Mike T, and, we just finished really strong.
Marty, what was it about this team? Like, at 2-6, some teams lay down and fold, and you guys really just...
Yeah, man, we persevered, man. It's perseverance, man. A lot of times, things are not going to go your way. I never been around a team where everything was just smooth. Even when I was at Alabama, we all had our adversity. It may not have been like winning, but we had our little bit of adversity. But for us to persevere and just stick together how we were, I think that just comes into next year when we're going through some trouble early on, or even later in the season. We can just recall back to this year when we just stuck through and stuck it out.
You mentioned avoiding Mike T's first losing season. What does it mean for you guys to be able to pull that off?
Man, that was just for Mike T, man. When we started off at 2-6, he always said that I'm not going to change the way I'm coaching. I'm not going to blink. I'm going to be the same guy. He never changed. He never switched up, man. That's his leadership. And, for us to come in there and just to win for him and, not have that losing season, I think it was big for us.
It says a lot of what players think about Mike Tomlin, and never say never, just keep on playing and taking it week to week, and they did, and they bounced back with 7 wins and 2 losses in their last 9. Now, normally when we do our Ford Road Ahead, we're talking about games. Steelers won't have any more games this season, but they do have some very important dates as an organization, beginning with the franchise tag designation, the NFL Combine later in February, and then you got free agency. And that's interesting with a quarterback who's in his rookie contract. They can spend more money, and they should probably spend more money. Start of the league year, then you have off-season workouts. The draft is in Kansas City this year on April the 27th. So of those dates, Josh, which are you looking forward to the most? Discount the draft because everyone looks forward to the draft.
I'd say probably the NFL Combine and free agency negotiation, because they're going to have to try to figure out how many holes they can fill on this roster. I think they have, 25, 26 free agents coming up here, Bob. They're going to have to fill some holes, not only with veteran guys, but try to get some new blood in here as well. And we've talked throughout the season about how young this offense is and how young this team is. Most of the guys on this roster weren't here a couple years ago because they're a lot more, green as far as the league experience goes. So I'm looking at the Combine as far as how Andy Weidel and Omar Khan identify. And by the way, this is their first crack at it, running this organization. So how do they approach who they think the next guys could be in this draft? And also, how do you augment this team in free agency as far as bringing in some experienced guys that might be able to help you out, because you're going to have some holes on defensive line. You might have to replace some guys in the secondary, maybe at linebacker. There's a couple expiring contracts on the defensive side of the ball. So now you have to try to figure out who can plug those holes and who could be part of your future as well, as far as that young talent that you can infuse into this roster.
While Omar Khan didn't have to make many moves, one of them, and the best one so far, was trading Chase Claypool. And they get now a very high second-round pick from the Chicago Bears, who end up having the worst record and the #1 pick in the NFL draft. So that was a good way to start his opportunity to build from this point forward, taking it over from Kevin Colburn. We'll see what happens as the next weeks and months go on. In the meantime, we're going to go on with the special edition of the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. So you can call us. We'll be here at 412-575-2600. Let us know what you think about the season, looking ahead, what you like, who may be back, who may be gone. It's all on the table as we continue following a Steelers 28-14 win over Cleveland today. Thank you for joining us for your Ford Neighborhood Store Extra Point coming up. It's the Sports Call right here on Pittsburgh CW.